Black Thought and El Michels Affair, glorious game, album review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this debut collaboration between legendary Roots frontman Black Thought and El Michels Affair. Now, Black Thought does not need much of an introduction. The man is an absolute legend, like I said, frontman of the Roots, and, you know, while they meant so much to me growing up in my teens and my early 20s, I have kind of fallen off with the Roots material as of lately, especially their last few albums, even though I heard it's not that bad. But for me, it's been all about Black Thought's solo work and collaborative work over the last few years. I mean, the first two volumes of the Streams of Thought EPs are just classic, dusty boom bap with just super conscious, direct lyrics from Black Thought. And honestly, the guy has been able to really reinvent himself in a way and just get really super laser focused again and reinvigorated at the end of the day. Even if I thought that the third Streams of Thought experience was just not as nearly as captivating as the first two. However, last year, he put out an absolute instant classic with Danger Mouse in the Cheat Codes album. This album I gave a decent 9 to because this to me was a happening. It was everything that I loved about hip-hop and rap when I was young, and it's something that I could really appreciate now as well. The production was great, Black Thought's verses were super intense, and overall I was super into it. Now, El Michels Affair, on the other hand, is an interesting case. They are a Brooklyn-based band that blend a lot of funk and soul and elements of jazz and electronics, and their early work is mostly instrumental, but I really do commend a lot of the early works that they were doing. And yes, while they have toured with the likes of Raekwon and also reinvented works from Wu-Tang's 36 Chambers, which was pretty good, around the time of their debut, Sounding Out the City, I actually thought what they were doing was really cool. This took the sounds of funk and soul and jazz back to a much simpler time. And no, there were no vocals on this album. A lot of their work doesn't have vocals, but the storytelling that I was getting just from the music itself was wowing. It had a vivid cinematic edge, and their follow-up adult themes, while maybe not as impressive as their debut, I still was at least, you know, very on to what they were doing. Now, the last time we heard from El Michels Affair, they were putting out an album that was a lot more mystic and mysterious, which I thought was good. But alongside of that, we got vocal guests for the first time, and they were very hit and miss. And leading up to this album, I kind of was worried about that. I was worried about the music of El Michels Affair needing a vocalist, or really, you know, losing a little something from grabbing a vocalist. But they have teamed up with Black Thought here. I thought the singles leading up to this album were surprisingly very good, and I mean, my thoughts on this album are Black Thought stays on the roll that he's on, and El Michels Affair really does pick up the pace to keep up with him. The first entire leg of this album is really impressive. While not up to the levels of last year's Cheat Codes, it's pretty darn close. This album starts off with Grateful, probably one of my favorite tracks here, and wow, this is where we're starting with this hazy, funky beat that pulls from jazz and reggae and funk and more. And Black Thought, even though we've heard from him just a year ago, the man sounds completely refreshed and once again laser focused. It's a little dusty, it's a little cinematic, but it takes Black Thought's verse and puts it to the next level. It brings a dramatic edge to it. And like I said, I've always kind of gone back and forth on my thoughts on vocals in El Michels Affair's music, but this is a great argument for it and a fantastic start. Then we get this album's title track, Glorious Game, featuring Kirby. It is a much slower, dreamier track, but Black Thought's lyrical onslaught picks this track the freak up and makes it a really intense performance. It is wildly vivid, it is soulful, it is bluesy. The sung hook that we get here is just what the doctor ordered too. It just makes this track melodic enough to stick with you. It's chilly, it's haunting. I mean, honestly, I haven't loved a lot of rap and hip-hop this year, but this right now is making me smile. I'm Still Somehow, I absolutely adore this track. I love the more low-key and jazzy instrumentation that we get from El Michels Affair. And that would be cool enough as it is. It's very 70s, it's very throwback, it's very smooth. And then on top of that, Black Thought just takes over lyrically and just takes this to the next level, which I could say a lot about this entire album. He continues to just sound so refreshed, reinvigorated, and you know what? This isn't the most heavy-hitting, intense track here. It's on the more low-key side, but it still packs a punch. It has that quiet intensity that I just absolutely adore. And Hollow Way, God, this track is so silky smooth. So much of this album is. The production's really sharp too. There are so many layers to this. Once again, this beat is on the smoother and silkier side. It's got that dusty ruggedness to it as well, and the production. It's the kind of stuff that I would have loved in my teens. It's immaculate, honestly, and Black Thought has so many great one-liners here, so many memorable lines. And the beat shift is done so incredibly classy. I mean, the second half of this track has such a bite to it. I needed this. And the weather is so freaking cool. It is hazy and psychedelic and one of the more hard-to-place tracks on this album. And there's a drama, a cinematic edge to this album that I really crave as well. It almost reminds me of one of my favorite Ghostface projects, The 12 Reasons to Die. The beats are cinematic, the rhymes are fresh. I mean, I can't ask for much more than this. My only issue with this album, it is a little short, and you know, the very few tracks that really do stick out for the wrong reasons. Like Protocol, this might just be me, but this is one of my least favorite tracks on this entire album. I don't know, but just how melodic and bouncy this track is, and just the sung hook does not really vibe with me as well. It takes me out of the groove of this album. It really does stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, you may absolutely love this, because Black Thought does bring his A-game, but this just, to me, it's a major disconnect on this album. And I want to be absolutely up in arms on this album, and then I hear That Girl, and I think it's the worst track here. This just screams to me like one of the worst tracks on Streams of Thought Volume 3, and by that I mean it's just really disjointed. The pieces are here, Black Thought's verse is fine, but there is a major disconnect here between him, the instrumental, the production. Nothing really adds up. It literally sounds like a demo version or like an early version of a track that would evolve into something much better. And the Glorious Game reprised, I mean, it's not necessary. I mean, there's little going on in this track outside of a reprise of the sung hook, which is fine, and a beat that is one of the most ambient and dreamy here. It almost sounds like something off the Twin Peaks soundtrack. It's just a lot of fluff, and I'm pretty shocked that it made the cut, honestly. Outside of that, though, Black Thought stays on a roll. Michels' Affair sticks it up, and honestly, it's a really great album. I Would Never comes off as like the best victory lap I could have asked for. The kind of victory lap where both of these artists are just on such a roll that they're playing off each other so easily. And Alone is a spicy freaking boom bap tune where the beat is fiery and the message is even more fiery. It's got the same energy as so much of this album. It's short, it's sweet, but it gets its point across, and it's a complete thought. Miracle is a big change of pace for this album, but I kind of needed a little bit of a shift. It's much more gritty and grimy and in your face. It's probably the most intense track here. It's got the realism from both artists that I crave, and Michels' Affair does a great job of bringing a certain amount of drama to this track. And Alter Ego featuring Brain Story, not only is it a great finale, not only is it a fantastic deep cut, it may be my favorite track here. This instrumental is one of my favorites on this entire album just because of how tragic and dreary and emotional it is. And Black Thought's verse, like, I hate to pick and choose, but I think this is one of my favorite verses from him on this entire album. He sounds exhausted, but in the best way, like the rap veteran, emotionally distraught and exhausted kind of way. The sampling is great, the production is right where I want to hear it. This is just the kind of finale that I want to hear on an album like this. So I wouldn't say that this is up to the par of like Cheat Codes from last year, just because that was such an experience, but these two artists really, really worked well together. Black Thought sounds just as as reinvigorated and refreshed as he has the last few years. Michels Affair really step it up and bring a cinematic, dusty, very dramatic edge to his music, and they play off each other really well. I mean, I wish this album was a little bit longer, and those few blips on the radar are real crappy and just get me out of the groove entirely. But still, for a year that to me I just haven't been into that much rap and hip hop. Honestly, this is really refreshing and it makes me happy. I'm feeling a light 8 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.